Welcome. You are listening to Sharegiving Secrets with Deborah Greenhut. If you are a family caregiver or expect to be one, and you want to maintain your well-being while caring, then you are in the right place. I am your host, Deborah Greenhut, speaker, author, and rational caregiver advocate. I'm a family caregiving veteran, bringing you survival secrets and experiences from experts who share the goal of doing less by managing more. We need to invent and reinvent family care, and together we're going to do it. My big idea is rational caregiving, and my motto is, let your brain lead your heart. Please share yours in the comments. Sharegiving Secrets, because friends don't let friends be caregivers alone. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to Sharegiving Secrets. I'm launching this podcast with a bit of background about my caregiving experiences to help you understand where I'm going with the idea of sharegiving. By that made-up word, I mean sharing the caregiving. Caregiving has to begin somewhere, whether it's a subtle, fateful tap on the shoulder or a thunderclap of a telephone call that changes your world forever. I imagine now it could begin as a text message or some social media signal, but it's often unexpected, unplanned, and a disruption. We may be honored to be asked to help or ungrateful for the inconvenience, but when no one else steps up, we may find ourselves chosen, even if we can't exactly pinpoint the line or remember when we crossed over it. So much depends on whether we can decide to care for a loved one or life takes over and requires us to step up and care. Being a parent, for example, is a kind of caregiving I chose with joy. It may have been a roller coaster, but it was the one I wanted. But caring for an ill or disabled loved one is often a necessity that is decided for us. The fact is, though, that most of us, as First Lady Rosalind Carter explained, most of us have been, will be, or are caregivers, or we're going to need one someday. Can you relate to that? Well, my someday came on subtly at first. My dad had called a couple of days earlier to explain that he and Mom wouldn't make it to Thanksgiving because she had the flu. He was 80 and my mom was 71 and she had emphysema. They were taking care of each other, he said, and he apologized and wished us well. Maybe Mom should be in the hospital, I asked. He told me she refused to go. And you know Mom. I know. She got the last word, didn't she, Dad? When the phone did ring on Thanksgiving Day, our oven timer had just gone off and my kids and I had gathered near my husband for the ceremonial opening of the oven door. I picked up the phone and all hell broke loose. Nothing subtle there. It was my dad shouting, "She's dead! She's dead!" This pressed us into a frantic scramble to plan while I packed a few things to run up to my parents' home 65 miles away to see how I could help my father. I was 45 years old, and I had only an inkling of how ill-prepared I was to try to take over for my mother. This experience disrupted and changed my life and changed me in ways I could never have anticipated. I was determined to make sure my father survived the shock of grief and to take care of my mother's funeral and whatever else needed to be done to help my dad make it through. I thought I could be Superwoman for long enough to take care of him and restart his life. I'd had several conversations with my mother during the previous summer to try to be ready should the need arise for me to help either one of them. My mother kept reassuring me that all the paperwork of wills was done and that she would put them on a certain shelf in her closet and I shouldn't worry. I couldn't help feeling a little uneasy, but I didn't feel comfortable arguing too much because she was finally opening up about these matters, and she seemed so frail. The mess of papers and confusions about who knew or did what was something I never anticipated. My dad knew nothing about his situation because mom had run his office and his finances throughout their married life of nearly 50 years. There was a business to close, records to be disposed of, lawyers to be hired for lawsuits, and mom's estate, medical records for dad that I couldn't find and doctors wouldn't share with me, and no significant help from family members. I dug in. I exhausted myself with details, only to find myself driving my father to the emergency room about 2 months later as he suffered a massive heart attack, the last one, in the passenger seat of my car. After my father died, the work doubled because there were now 2 estates to resolve and no one available to answer any of my questions. It took me 4 years and the beginning of a chronic disease to complete the work, and I will never be the same. Some of you listeners won't have to imagine that transformation because you have lived through the experience of caregiving too, or are living it now. Before that caregiving experience, I had lived a very different life that gave me some of the skills that could have helped me manage the situation in a way that did not exhaust me. But I found that my feelings blocked my clearer thoughts. And as people declined to help me, a degree of despair crept in that prevented a rational response from me to the insane demands that were placed on me. I had been an educator and a manager, a college professor and an entrepreneur, an independent contractor. But all of this fell away in the panic and grief that began with my mother's death. And for a long time, I could barely tread water in the ocean of tasks I confronted. Have you been there too? My experience that first time was nearly 30 years ago. Yet I'm hearing similar tales from people who are just beginning their caregiving duties today. Why is it so important to improve the quality of life for caregivers now? Well, some statistics help us to see the big picture. If there are 1 billion disabled people needing caregivers on Earth, as the UN states, that means that there are at least another billion engaged in caregiving. Some loved ones also require more than one caregiver. So that means a significant proportion of the world's population is engaged in being or receiving caregiving, just as Mrs. Carter explained. In the US, some 55 million unpaid family caregivers, according to our AARP, contribute more than $660 billion to our economy. Family caregivers also contribute some of their own money in addition to sacrificing their own health while helping loved ones. In the weeks to come, I'll look at the consequences of caregiving while gathering solutions that will help people share the load. Caregiving is often a 30 or more year assignment, and in some cases, the work is so demanding that caregivers die before the people they are caring for. Those are some grim facts, but there are ways we can do better. What I've learned and what I want to provide for you is that there are strategies for managing caregiving that can allow you to keep your financial, emotional, and physical well-being while being responsible for a loved one. They can also help you keep your mental health. I believe you can be successful in this labor of love if you allow your mind to lead your heart to rational caregiving. Caregiving should not have to become a sacrifice of one life for another's well-being. This is what I want to help you achieve: a thoughtful, rational experience where managing instead of doing more is the improved goal. I want to help you become a sharegiver. In your life journey, you can wear the hat of an explorer, a tourist, or a prisoner. And a prisoner is led along uncomfortably by forces outside of her control. A tourist, by contrast, goes along for the ride and doesn't learn or cope much for herself along the way. An explorer seeks out new and deeper understanding of her life by trying out new strategies and taking charge of her destiny, adapting and experimenting to find creative, empowering ways of coping and savoring the unknown road ahead. I hope you're choosing the Explorer hat so you can ride with me. Until next week, think about ways to share the care. Thank you for welcoming me in. Thank you for joining me today on the Sharegiving Secret, How to Survive Family Caregiving. I love sharing these insights and stories to empower you on your caregiving journey. If today's conversation resonated with you, consider diving deeper by picking up a copy of my pamphlet, Non-Negotiables for Caregivers. It's filled with great strategies to help you think through how to maintain your well-being while caregiving. Nobody wants to become Carezilla, right? Visit sharegiving.net to get this resource that can help you navigate your caregiver path with grace and resilience. Let's continue to share our stories and support each other. Until next time, keep sharing, keep caring, and remember, you're not alone on this journey. Thank you.